William and Mary, congratulations, quarterfinals. If we're all ready, Gov, Op. I didn't do Gov ready?
Yep.
Op ready?
Mm-hmm.
All right, I call this House to order and call upon the Prime Minister.
Here.
Thanks, everyone. Great to be presiding over the second board civil war. I think this happened. Rest in peace, Macron. But I like traditions, right? Good thing, my own. So I wanna harken back to the days of William and Mary won last year, when I got to walk into a quarters round and run probably my favorite case that Takish has talked a lot of shit about, and now he's got to put up with. So, in August of 1941, Germany broke the non-aggression pact with the Soviet Union and invaded. Their invasion was highly successful and broke through the front lines of their forces. Germany then asked you, the Empire of Japan, to open a second front against the Soviet Union. In the status quo, you reject this offer and eventually attack Pearl Harbor instead of invading Siberia for resources. Our case is simple. We say, open the second front.
Here.
You're there. Operation Barbarossa began in July.
Yep.
So,
No, it's the same.
There are actually two different.
not if you want a calendar. Okay, sorry. So,
All right, I'm fine with saying it opens in July. It's better for our case anyway.
Are we? What exactly are you proposing, and what are we bound to? Basically, so my question is, can we strategize kind of however we want?
Okay, so let's be very clear about this, because some shenanigans have been pulled. So you guys can like strategize to do whatever you want. You can do like Pearl Harbor. You can do like a diplomatic option. You can like try and invade a different area. We just ask that you don't do like, we'll invade them 6 months from now. We'll do your plan like 6 months down the line. As long as your plan is like,
Oh, no. Sean, I promise you, I will not invade Russia. I promise you. So beyond like not doing it later, we can do.
Fair though, we want to make sure some factual questions are set in stone. So this doesn't become a battle. So the majority of iron and oil resources in the region are in like the Siberia, Russia area. There's some oil in the islands that are currently controlled by, say, the United Kingdom, and I believe parts of France as well. You're not technically at war with the United Kingdom yet. You have not seized those islands. That was part of Pearl Harbor's big plan. You know, like, Pearl Harbor was not just invading Pearl Harbor, but like a bunch of other islands.
Right? Define the region.
Pacific. Like, not a whole Pacific. That's ridiculous. So just the, like, Pacific theater.
Okay.
So, like, we're including Indonesia, Australia, like, side of India, China, that kind of stuff.
Okay.
And you know, like, what Japan has at this point, right? Like, coastal possessions in China. They haven't occupied all of it. They've just occupied certain, like, populous and resource-rich areas.
Okay. Where's Britain right now? Like, what's going on with Great Britain?
Oh, Great Britain. So this is post-Battle of Britain. Battle of Britain was happened. It was a close but decisive victory for Britain. They had air superiority, which means Hitler is basically like trying to figure out what his next move was. He then decided to invade the Soviet Union. Britain is like right now in the stage of just aerial bombardment. They try and bomb the Germans. The Germans bomb them. That's the thing that's going on. Okay. The British have like some expeditionary forces in India, like they're recruiting a lot from that area, so they have like forces there. But like obviously we can both make arguments about the distribution of forces.
I'm kind of good actually. Cool. Are we good? Oh, cool. We're good.
Yeah. Fantastic. Everybody ready? Thank you, everyone. 3 independent points to construct our case. The first one is about empire. You as Japan clearly value expansion for a number of reasons. That firstly, culturally, you view yourself as superior to a number of these nations, including the Soviet Union, China, and the United Kingdom. That you want to conquer these areas not only because of your ideals of conquest that are integral to your nationalistic sentiments, that are forcing people, not only the soldiers that are the individual citizens of Japan, but also the military leaders, to constantly strive for the best possible performance as a nation. But also, it gives you significant access to additional resources. The reality of an empire, it requires a large military in order to conquer additional possessions, take plunder, and then therefore protect those possessions. But here's the thing. In order to have this large navy, this large army, you need a large amount of resources to maintain it. And if you don't have the resources to maintain a large navy, then you progressively become weaker, and that makes you look worse as far as a deterrence value. That other nations are going to see you as an empire that is, say, quote-unquote, declining. When you don't have the iron and oil to not only just support the navy that you have, but also to constantly make it bigger, to make sure that you look like you're an expanding power, you then have very valuable possessions that other empires and nations could therefore view as tenable towards their own gains, right? We can see the United States expansion in the Pacific as an example of this exactly happening, that when Spain in 1900 appeared to be weakening, then the United States basically jumped on that bandwagon, stole a few territories, and that's basically what ended up happening. So you need to constantly have this perception that you're a powerful navy. But here's the problem. You don't have the iron and oil resources to continue preserving this navy and this armed force to make sure that the United States doesn't eventually try to take things away from you, or the United Kingdom doesn't, or say the Soviet Union ends up winning the Second World War and eventually creates a navy because their production capability is fucking ridiculous. That would be a position where they then would be able to take away parts of your empire because all of these nations have direct financial and direct national incentives to try and remove you not only as a threat to their own interests, but to just gain additional resources, because they are also very, for all intents and purposes, empires like the Soviet Union, clearly an empire, America, like basically an empire, same thing. But secondly under this, it's a signal to the world about why an Eastern power is now equitable to Western powers. That Eastern powers have constantly been at the behest of the Western world. This is only 40 years after, or not 40 years, 60 years after, literally Eastern powers being carved up on a map and being destroyed, because people didn't even think that they would be able to mount any sort of defense, right? But now, Japan is showing that not only are they going to be able to defend themselves against a Western power, but they're going to be able to defeat one-on-one, or rather two-on-one, but still in a significant capacity in order to build up this military. That it shows that Japan is not just an Eastern power that is insignificant, but rather is somebody that you have to treat at the same level as the United Kingdom, which is incredibly important for the establishment of an international system, right? If you want to have any sort of diplomatic benefits, you have to be appearing to be a good, strong power. That's why you send a signal to the world. And beating China is, like, not going to do this, right? Like, you have been beating China up until this point, but most people think China is a total clusterfuck, right? Like, they can't get anything together, their troops are horribly trained, you're basically walking in and mowing them down because they're improperly trained, equipped, everything. It's really a slaughter instead of a battle. But the third thing under this is that the best way of creating a better land force, because let's be real, your comparative advantage is in the Navy and the training of your land forces, but not necessarily the size and scope of your land forces or the technology. You can leverage this support to Germany for that technology that has allowed Germany to dominate the other powers, right? Like, look at what Germany has been able to accomplish. That technology, the Blitzkrieg, is something you do not have, but it is something you can get when you say, we will give additional forces towards your efforts if you give us this technology. And you can even say, we will be able to take the Soviet Union out faster if you give us this technology, which lessens casualties on your rate, meaning it's very reasonable for Germany to give you this land technology, giving you more of a comparative advantage and equalizing you to other imperialist powers. But the second question, and the most important one in the round, I know Alex is going to flag this one, that's why I said it, is victory, and why this is going to end up becoming an easy battle for you to take on either side. So there are two potential routes that the Soviets can take. The reality of the situation is the Soviet Union is fighting against the Germans. They are fighting and losing right now. So that means that they have basically all of their land forces dedicated to this one front. What does that mean? The amount of forces that are in this area are very low because they care more about the centralized powers, where the population is, where the factories are, where the central communist center of production has tried to create the Soviet ideology in the West. In the West, in the West is where basically everything, sorry, compass in my head. In the West is where everything is being dedicated. So that means they're probably not having a lot of troops. What does that mean? We plow through, right? Like, we surprise attack, we take a lot of defensive positions, and we take the resource nodes that are already obviously being taken by the Soviets because they have an incentive to also build up the resources. And it's very likely that people at these facilities will work with us, right? Because the Soviet Union is very famous for using gulags to try and get raw resource production, right? These gulag people are not very happy with the Soviets. Like, they're pretty much fucking hating them because they were put in Siberia, right? So all you have to do is go up to these areas, not even fight them, and just declare, you will get freedom after the war. We will take you out of the prison camp, but you have to work with us. We'll give you like extra food. We'll make sure you're not dying, and you must work for us. This makes sure not only do the Soviet troops basically probably go to your side because they don't want to like literally die into the Japanese Navy because there's not really a lot of retreat paths in like Siberia, right? That means that you get control over these nodes. They're not destroyed, and it's more likely you're able to take up these sort of sea routes that you can then create as a trade route to try and get the resources from these areas because Japan has total dominance of the sea in these areas. But let's say, like, irrationally, like Stalin says, send a bunch of troops over and just try and take the area. Even if you believe that point, we still win. Because if Stalin does that, like totally irrationally, if they somehow convince you, then Germany starts plowing through even faster, right? And the vast majority of the production facility of the Soviet Union is going to be in the West in these centralized areas. Why? Because it's not a good idea to put a factory in like a frozen wasteland, right? Like, you need people to make resources in factories. So once all the production's gone, what the fuck are they going to fight you with? Like, bullets from nothing. They're going to throw rocks, basically, and that's going to be easy. Like, I don't care how bad Siberia is. Like, they're easily going to be able to beat them if they have, like, a fucking spear, right? That means that you're going to be able to eventually defeat the Russians. And because of the fact that Siberia is so large, the factories are so far away that once they're destroyed, you can probably break through the front, take all this territory before Germany even gets to it in the first place. That means on either side, every option basically leads to us being better off. And I'm really waiting to see what their alternative is, because it's really going to be fun. But the third argument is about what happens after the war if you do not take this action. So, like, let's be real here. They're not just defending, don't do this action. They're defending a geopolitical decision about how Japan is going to fit into the Pacific theater. Let's say Soviet Union doesn't win. Or the Soviet Union does win. They somehow beat Hitler, something happens, and that like requires them to take over this position. Then they're coming after you very easy. Why? China is undergoing a partial communist revolution. The Soviet Union wants another communist power to prove that it can happen outside of Russia. So that means they're going to give significant resources to the Chinese communist rebels, which, by the way, you're occupying. So they're eventually going to come for you, if not just literally invading you to try and free these countries after the war if they survive. But let's say the Soviet Union doesn't win, and you stay out of this, and Germany takes all of this. Let's be real. The German alliance is an alliance of convenience, and when we want to fight them, we want to fight them in Siberia, not in Manchuria.
I thank the Prime Minister and call upon the Leader of Opposition.
Here, here.
Cool. So, I thank the Prime Minister for his lovely fever dream, and I want to get into my three off-case points. So the first thing I want to talk about what actually are the strategic goals of Japan. The first thing I want to talk about is obviously expanding your naval capacity. We need to analogize this round to the situation Great Britain has basically always been throughout its history, because you're in a similar situation. What you are is an island nation. There's tremendous benefits to the stopping power of water when you take into consideration that all threats from the Soviet Union are basically null to your actual defense of your empire. Why? Because they've historically just lacked a navy. So your actual home territory is something that can never be threatened. But who are other powers that can, in fact, threaten your naval supremacy? The United States and Great Britain. Why do we think it is far more important to prioritize attacking them? So, number one, the British Navy is incredibly powerful, but more than that, they're currently on the ropes right now. Before Operation Barbarossa, Great Britain was getting its ass handed to it in North Africa, and they were being bombed on a daily basis. So if you apply the exact right pressure right now and take important bases like Singapore, Indonesia, and India, where you'll find a largely sympathetic domestic population, because the British and Indians don't exactly get along super well, I think you're going to be very much sitting pretty as Japan. But what's more than that, when you take that very much westward approach and go that way, you're eventually going to run into this cool place called Iran. They've got a fuck ton of oil. We think that's a fantastic way for you to actually focus those resources, put the British on the rope, and more importantly, Germany's going to be much more grateful for you. Before Hitler started courting the Japanese to fight the Russians, he courted them to fight the British and take Singapore. That's far more important for you. But most importantly, we think it's absolutely crucial that you dedicate your resources to this naval capacity, and then once you've secured it, you can use the land resources that you would have used to invade Russia and actually start taking more aggressive stances towards India. So that's your first strategic. I'll get you on a move on case. But the second strategic goal you necessarily has, like Sean agrees, is taking care of these resources. And he says, I mean, he lies, but he says, we'll play ball for this round, the resources are in Siberia. So here's the thing. Fun fact, everyone. Before Germany and the Soviet Union were at war, they were incredibly close friends. As a matter of fact, the arrangement they had was that Germany would buy natural resources from Russia, something they need, and Russia would then, buy manufactured goods from Germany because they were able to manufacture. After gunboat diplomacy, Japan industrialized in a very big way. So you have the industrial capacity to manufacture all these things. So what is Russia going to do? I think they're going to take a very similar deal, where in exchange for the raw resources you can buy from them, you can manufacture goods for the Soviets as well. We know they're going to like this deal. Why? Because they had this exact deal in history with the Germans. But more than that, since Russia is now out of a place to buy manufactured goods from, I see you're going to be sitting very pretty. But finally, just to preempt the MG response, he's going to say, oh, but if you take the resources from them, you don't extract them. So, number one, scorched earth, Russia doesn't give a fuck. But number two, Russia has other ways to gain access to these resources. They have Caucasus oil fields. They can potentially discuss it with Iran, all these other things. So Russia can burn this place to the ground and steal what they have. Just trade with them. I think trade is very cool for a bunch of reasons, but this round in particular. But the second thing I want to talk about is why particularly involving Russia is a bad idea. I've already discussed why you have much, much bigger fry, but this is literally the dumbest thing you could do ever. So first, let's talk about the geography of the situation. So first, Russia has a massive population. Yes, even if the majority of your troops are on the west, a point I'm going to contest in just a moment, even if the majority of your troops are in the west, it's a really big fucking country. They have the ability to defend against this. But more than that, Siberia is an incredibly big place, full of lots of geographical trouble. Ice is very tough for tanks to get over. This is a geography that's very tough to negotiate, but more than that, you do not have the land-based infrastructure to actually negotiate this particular terrain, so you're going to have a very difficult time actually going about it. But more than that, I'm going to contest the claim that every single one of Russian soldiers are on the Western Front. Why? Because like Sean said in Case Contra, Barbarossa was a surprise. The Russians were not anticipating this, which means you'd expect a sort of even distribution. They're not dedicating all these resources to the front. But more importantly, finally, even if we dedicate a large number, the majority to the Western Front, you're A, not going to leave it undefended, B, you have a large number of troops, and C, Russia still wants to keep this in the back pocket because really their only viable port other than St. Petersburg is, I forget, it's like Kamchatka. I haven't played Risk in a while. But they want to make sure they defend their only other viable port, so they'll be damned if they actually they let it happen. More than that, they're going to have their Siberian troops. Winter is coming, you got a little bit of time, but it's a lot of territory. Christmas is right around the corner. It's going to end very badly if in that cold weather area. So I think definitely said why invading Russia is a bad idea. But the second thing I want to talk about under this point is why Germany is a truly terrible ally for a couple of reasons. So number one, strategically, Hitler is in charge, but he's like the worst general ever. So a couple of hilarious mistakes Hitler has made. Number one, cutting off the continuous bombings at the Battle of Britain. He switched to civilian rather than military population centers. Number two, just kind of letting the Allies escape at Dunkirk. Number three, deciding to invade Russia rather than pressing through North Africa and into the Middle East oil fields. What does this mean? This means that there's no rhyme or reason to Hitler actually being here. If you read the biographies of the German generals, Germany could have won this war, no question. But they've already spoiled the chance of victory because they didn't assassinate Adolf Hitler when they had the chance. You simply cannot trust this man. You have no idea what he's going to do, and he's just gotten very, very lucky at this point of the war. One day his luck is going to run out, and it's going to be very bad when you're left picking up the slack. But the final thing I want to talk about is necessarily your industrial capacity. I've already touched on this, but basically we think it's important for Japan to actually to use its industrial capacity and offer Russia the exact same deal we had with Germany, and make it abundantly clear once this invasion immediately starts. Once, as Sean says, they would be at the best opportunity to strike. Japan goes, hey Russia, that Germany dude, he's fucking weird. How about we pick up that relationship we had, and we just continue it? Third thing I'm talking about. So fine. So the final thing I want to talk about, how we satisfy better the victory conditions for the Japanese. First, as I already said, when you dedicate all of your resources, more of your resources to naval production, you're better able to protect against the United States, which even though it has greater industrial capacity and it's able to dedicate more to the land forces necessary to actually conquer you, if you have the Navy to stop them from getting those troops onto the beaches, well, you've won. It doesn't matter how many Sherman tanks they have. So you're able to balance against that. Number two, you're able to take British holdings, because the British are on the ropes in this period of time. And number three, when you're able to actually land your troops, even relatively small numbers in British and French colonies, they are going to be incredibly pleased for the fact that an Asian power is trying to help liberate them from a European power. They're going to be super stoked.
Yeah, so what happens when, during a World War climate, right when the chips are down, you switch alliances? What message does that send to literally every future ally you can have?
Well, it's going to send a message, hey Russia, that Germany guy was crazy. How about, wait, when he betrays you, I betray Germany. Germany's the one who fucked it up, members of this panel. Germany's the one who broke the alliance. You're saying, wow, that guy's crazy. Tap out, folks. So the first thing he talks about is empire. He talks about you value expansion. I've already talked about how expansion is actually far more practical on our side. It has. You expand into territory, you're just much better equipped of two fighting it. The next thing you talk about is how it signals to the West. So first, Sean, I'm going to just go to say, ego is getting you killed. Like, this is the Tony Soprano foreign policy. Like, we don't know what happened to Tony at the end, but I promise you, he dies because that guy is sitting at the bar. But more than that, he talks about the diplomatic benefits of expanding this. Wait, Sean, I'm confused. In order to gain respect as a European power, I thought the way you do it is by conquering these Far East Asian states. I'm very confused by that. But more than that, like I said, ego gets you killed. Like, fuck what these Western powers actually want you to do. If you have the Navy to stop any American advances, and you have the resources from Russia to actually meet it, like, who cares what they say about you? It's a policy that works kind of well for me. The next thing he talks about is how you're able to get an easy victory. So much of this cross applies. Let's see what we do. So he said, necessarily all their land forces are in the West. So if it's a surprise attack, no, that's not true. It's evenly distributed. Number two, when you have a large population, it kind of doesn't matter what the distribution is. Third, he talks about the industrial capacity. No, the industrial capacity isn't in the West or in the East. It's in the Ural Mountains, which is basically like dead in the center of this great big country called Russia. Nobody can get at it, so Russia is finally safe. But more than that, we don't think you want that. We think you want these resources and you want to get them in a peaceful way. The Russians aren't going to blow up the oil well if they know they can sell it to you in a relationship that they actually want to maintain with the Germans. They're going to be very happy to keep this up. The next thing he's talking about is Germany is able to guarantee freedom after the war. No, Germany can't guarantee everything. Germany can't guarantee what Hitler's going to say the next day. Another thing he's talking about is how after the war, Russia's necessarily going to invade. No, if you have a mutually beneficial relationship through trade, Russia's not going to invade. Russia didn't want war with Germany. Rather, we say on our side of the house, you have a better totalitarian pact with Russia because you're able to solve Russia's needs. You have a navy. Russia has the army. You're able to establish a much better world order. You kick the British out. You become a new East Asian sphere of influence. For all these reasons, I'm incredibly proud to oppose.
Here, here. I think the leader of opposition can call upon the member of government.
You're here.
Everybody good? Thanks, everybody. So we want to start off with a little bit of an overview and make fun a little bit of Down's counterplan. So what they tell you is that that Japan, who both sides agree is a naval power, whose best advantage is its navy, the way you should go get your oil is to go to Iran and go to India. So both are pretty, comparatively heavily fortified because the British, we tell you, are recruiting a lot of troops in India, and also they're just kind of far away comparatively than, making that short naval trip over to Russia. It is way easier to extract resources there. So I think we very clearly win on all our alternatives. So let's get into the flow. The first thing we talk about is our strategic goals. They tell you that you want to expand the naval capacity, and because you're an island nation, water protects you. So again, you are an empire, right? And not all of the Japanese empire is surrounded by water. You know what's included in the Japanese empire? China. You know what's not surrounded by water? China. We think it's perfectly easy for countries to go and attack your imperial holdings in China, which will necessitate a lot more fighting that you don't want to do. They tell you that the US and the UK are much higher priorities. Again, I think it is much harder to target them. You get no resources by fighting them because it's way harder. And also, the UK is just in a comparatively better place to defend against you than Russia is. They tell you, oh, you should just take Iran, across by what I told you earlier. That's silly. They say occupy India. Again, that's super silly. They say you can just buy things from the Russians. So this point is really confusing. So when are you going to make this deal? Are you going to say, right now, okay, Russia. Right now, during this war, you're going to say, Russia, we need a lot of oil. We need a lot of coal. I know you're totally losing this war, but let's make this major deal right now and export all of your things to us. That is just going to be an enormously difficult deal to make because Russia's not going to engage in all of this trading right now. It takes time to get this deal up, and I think it's likely that by the time you start getting significant resources, Germany has already advanced into Russia and started seizing these resources that you were going to get. That's incredibly damaging. But also, it's just going to look like you're going to, betraying Germany is just not a good thing to do, right? We understand that you're an imperial power, things are culturally superior, but you've made alliances in the past and you're going to continue to need to do so. So we think that when you say you have a major alliance with a major power, but you're just going to be in the middle and be like, nah, we're going to start getting resources from other guys, that's going to set a really bad precedent and make you not work in this international system. Again, we also just think it's very clear that the Soviet Union is going to lose, and this deal is not going to last, and you're not going to have long-term imperial capability. The second thing that they talked about was how invading Russia is bad. So they tell you there's a really huge population. Again, it is just true that the population is concentrated in major cities in the West in the production capacities. That is just a fact, right? I think it is very clear that you're not going to face a lot of people, and the argument that they don't deal with is a lot of the people you're going to face are going to be prisoners in gulags who you're going to be able to turn pretty quickly, and no matter what Reed Barry's Anna says. They tell you ice is going to be a really big issue. They tell you that there's going to be a lot of ice that you're going to need to move tanks over. Again, this is not going to be a major combat area because you're basically going to be able to march in because of the comparative lack of defense. You don't need tanks, right? Sure, it's cold. They tell you that you don't have the land infrastructure in order to move troops and resources that way. You know what land infrastructure does exist? Russians have a degree of land infrastructure because they wanted to transfer those things. Seize the Russian infrastructure because it's going to be comparatively less defended. Just use that. They tell you that Operation Barbarossa was a surprise, so troops are probably heavily concentrated, or evenly concentrated. So again, I think that even if you're not expecting an attack from either side, a nation will probably concentrate most of its troops where it has the most to lose, which is where its productive capability is and where the most of its people are. So they're just going to do that. But also, Barbarossa is a surprise. So what's going to happen immediately when Barbarossa happens? If there are troops in the east, Russia's going to take all of those troops in the east and move them to the west. That is going to happen. You can wait a week if you want to. Troops are going to be actively retreating there. They tell you they're going to defend a lot of these things with their troops. Again, I just don't think there's going to be a lot of troops. They tell you Germany is a bad ally. Then, Dan spends a lot of time talking about how shitty Hitler is. Yeah, Hitler's not great. But here's the problem. We think that Germany, even if it's not a great military power, has had some successes in the past. And we think that you're probably going to end up facing Germany. And Sean gave you a lot of warnings for that never went responded to. So what would you actually prefer? We think that since Germany is going to come for you, it is way better to do it in Siberia, where you're able to establish defensive institutions, where when Germany comes, they are coming when it's cold, when you have these resources, when you are actually able to stop them, and you have these resources that Germany doesn't have. Even if Germany is not a great country, even if Germany is not a great ally, it is better than being really angry with Germany. Then the final thing they talked about was industrial capacity. They tell you should just offer Russia the same deal. Again, I just crucify all of what I told you earlier. I just do not get how you are going to do this deal in the middle of the war. They tell you you're going to be better able to defend against the U.S. and how that is just a better war to make. So again, the United States doesn't want to go to war with you, right? The U.S. is isolationist. There is widespread political opinion against getting involved in World War II. So they would only go into World War II if you gave them a damn good reason to do so. You know what you're not doing on our side of the house? Giving them a damn good reason to do so. You are getting all of the benefits of doing this, of invading Russia and getting these resources, without the harms of making the U.S. really angry with you. But what's the additional problem of doing something like Pearl Harbor, attacking the U.S.? When you bomb a bunch of U.S. ships, you're not getting resources, you are getting resources there. So even if you buy that it is somewhat marginally easier to attack the U.S., which is just crazy, you still don't get the resources, and our side outweighs there. Case study. The first thing that we talked about was empire and how you value expansion, and you have to signal something to it. So they tell you can still do expansion, but it's going to be easier to go to Iran. Again, you just do not have the manpower. You already have already have to occupy China and maintain a lot of troops there. So your options are send a lot of troops that you just don't have, or divert a bunch of troops from China, which is going to devalue your imperial holdings, overstretch you, and just not going to be not going to work. When you talk about how you need to send a signal to the world, they tell you ego gets you killed, right? So one, I think Sean's still alive, so clearly it doesn't. But also, I think deterrence is just a good thing to have. So by invading these countries and by showing that you are an Eastern power that can stand with the West, you're showing, hey, we're not to be messed with. We are a power that you cannot treat lightly. That prevents further wars from happening. Also, you just need resources. We're the only side that gives you meaningful access to these resources. The second thing that we talked about was victory. And again, they just crossed by most of what we told you. They told you they're evenly distributed. 1, no. 2, definitely not in 2 weeks. Also, it just doesn't matter. It's going to be an easy enough invasion. They tell you that a lot of productive capacity is in the Ural Mountains. So I think this might actually misunderstand what Sean's point is. Sean's point is not seize the factories, it sees the oil. Those are two really distinct things. Sure, you will maybe in the short term you're not going to seize the Russian factories, but you're going to seize what you need to make those factories work. You have factories in other places. Take that oil, send it to where you need it, use it to fuel your expansion. The final thing that we talked about was about after the war. So I think Sean makes very clear this double bind. Either the Soviets win and they come after you because they want to expand communism, or Germany wins and they're going to come after you because of the nature of their political system, because they don't entirely trust you. And why is this so bad? Because now, if you don't do this, you don't have the resources. So you are in a substantially worse place to do this. this. They tell you Germany can't control Hitler and is a bad ally. Germany has still won battles. Germany has rational incentives. If Hitler is such a bad leader, then we think maybe over time, like it's probably likely that Hitler will be overtaken, and you have in the future better German leadership. That's going to make it so they're able to really screw you over, which is bad. But also, Russia's going to go after you if somehow they manage to lose the war. That's how you look. On their side of the house, you don't have resources. You don't have the capacity to continue to expand your empire, and you're in a worse place for the future. On our side, you get to continue the expansion of the Japanese empire, and on their side, you don't. So bad.
Take the member of government and call upon the member of opposition.
Alright, thanks everyone for adjudicating whether you're having a good tournament. Dan, you're a good partner. True friends on side now. Okay. So I just want to start off talking about their overview, because really the only thing that Nick tells us, the only real arguments that he gives us, is that our plans are silly. He gives absolutely no reasons why these are true. He just says, rather, that they don't work. He talks about the idea of counterplan. He says, if you have naval strength, why will you invade Iran? Why do you bother invading Iran? What we tell you, though, is that you go through other ports first. You gain other necessary resources in other places around Japan, places like Singapore, etc., that are currently occupied by the British, which we think is always going to be better for you. We give you a lot of reasons as to why this is better. One, they're literally more closely located, so you have to use less of your resources to actually go in and conquer them, and you can then get those resources. We think that's always going to be better. I don't think they ever actually address this. But going into our actual points, I also think that Nick cold dropped a lot of this stuff or just poo-pooed away without actually giving us any reason as to why it's wrong. First thing that Dan tells you about is about the strategic goals of Japan. He gives you a few. Talks about the fact that you are a navy, explains that you're an island nation, and Great Britain and the United States do pose a real threat to you. At the moment, they're kind of fucking occupied. They're going to be less concerned with Singapore. The only thing they say is, well, you're an empire, and China is a landmass, and like if you can control China, you can control other places. And literally, what is the point of Nick saying, well, you can't control Iran because it's like surrounded by land, and if your strength is navy, then why do you ever go like anywhere with land? If they can see that China is in fact a mainland country, and you can control that, you can stay in power with that, why can't you live in the realm of I don't think they give you any reasonable warrants as to why this is true. But we also tell you, though, that underneath this point, that we think that you actually do show all of the things that they talk about in their case. They talk about the idea that you actually want to conquer some European powers, that you want to show that you are a force to be reckoned with in Europe. Look, guys, I know Singapore is technically in Asia, but insofar as it's controlled by the Europeans, insofar as it's controlled, as they are colonies, they're considered to be subsets of Europe rather than independent Asian countries. It's not like, even if you buy all their analysis, which I think we're going to talk about more on case, that like people think China was a clusterfuck anyway and super easy to take over, recognize that these are in fact seen as extensions of British countries, these are victories over the British, etc. We think Germany's still going to be pretty happy with you over that. We don't think they're going to be upset insofar as they drop the analysis that Dan gives you. Sean can't bring it up, that before they asked you to go in and help with Russia, they asked you to conquer Singapore, etc. So I think this thing they're going to like anyway. But the second thing we talk about underneath this point is the idea of getting wrong, getting well through that, etc. But I think that what they don't understand is the analysis, that we're not just saying the only option is to go to Iran. If you don't conquer Russia, that's the only thing we can do. We're saying trade with Russia. What are the responses to this? It's like, well, Russia's going to take time to decide. If there's a huge fucking existential threat to Russia that they keep harping on about, I don't think Russia's going to be like, well, is this a really favorable policy? Like, are we getting screwed out of a little bit of money? Because you know what? Yes, Russia has a lot of resources. It has oil. Oil is great for that. You know what else they kind of need to win a war? Things like weapons, maybe. I think that that's pretty useful, and they only get that from you because recognize that they never contend with our point that all of the production centers are not in Russia because their previous deals were with Germany. When Germany compromised those deals, they had nobody else to produce those weapons for them. We think that you can step in that place, you can get all the raw resources you need. Fuck, you can probably screw them over a little bit, but they're still going to be pretty grateful because otherwise they get absolutely no weapons. Didn't deal with this, Sean's not going to be able to. But the next thing we talk about underneath this is the idea of resources. Germany used to be allies with the Soviet Union, had production, we talked about that. But we also talked about the fact that Germany or Russia just doesn't fucking give a shit. They would literally prefer a scorched earth policy in which they get rid of all of this stuff than giving it over to the Germans. Recognize that they're not just going to hope, they're not just going to wish and pray, they're not fucking Hitler, they're not that irrational. If they really think that they're losing, if for some reason Germany's kicking the shit out of them, then, or if you come in and are able to actually get some solvency, they're going to send soldiers back just to get rid of these, not even to fight you. We're not even arguing that. I think that there are arguments to be made that if you invade Russia, they are in fact going to try and fight on the Eastern Front as well, but I think they're just literally would prefer to burn these than to have you use them against them. That just makes absolute sense to me. They didn't address this, float it across. But we also tell you that Germany just doesn't really have a choice at this point as to whether or not they ally with you. We tell you that if they turn against you, which is one more sign of Hitler being completely irrational. Also, I think that there's a complete misunderstanding of what alliances are. I think it's like, well, if you've been historical allies, then you look like a bad ally if you turn against your previous allies. just turned against their previous ally. Was it Germany with the Soviet Union? Oh yes, it was. They might do that to you in the future. But I also think that this is a really idealistic image of what allies are. That it's never conditional. It's never based upon what somebody else can give to you. It's always supposed to be about true friendship and the people and the bonds that keep you together. So this is not My Little Pony, guys. This is actually a world war. We think it's much more important to actually do things that are better for your country overall. If you buy all of their points about empire, we think empire is much more important than this alliance. Recognize it's conditional. Recognize that the long-term solvency of your empire is only possible if you have those resources to maintain it. If you expand through Sycamore Center, if you have control over most of Asia first, which recognize is going to be pretty easy. I'll get into that more on case. That's always going to be better. Next thing Dan talks about, though, again under address, is the idea of involving Russia is a bad idea, just logistically. It's a big fucking country, guys. We think that if they concede, which is literally the point of their case, the idea that there are limited resources for you, that you actually need more resources in order to be able to maintain your empire, it's going to be pretty hard to go through Russia. Why is this? Firstly, tanks and ice. Pretty fucking difficult to do that. I think they have this really weird idea that you're going to be able to automatically launch this. I think it's funny that they say, well, Russia's not going to be able to decide a trade policy right away, but you're going to be able to invade right away. I think that makes complete sense. But I also think underneath this point that A, they know the area better than you, which is just always going to be an advantage. B, it's a huge fucking landmass, which means that you're actually just logistically going to need more resources, logistically going to need more soldiers, logistically going to need more oil to get through a fucking landmass, because recognize that it's not all surrounded by water. We think that that's always going to be worse. You're literally going to exhaust your resources for nothing because they're going to burn to the ground to spite you. I think that that's far worse. But also, I think another point they said, they talk about the people in Gulag. So we also told you the comparison to the people in India, people in Singapore, etc., who don't actually like British occupation, who prefer some sort of alliance if you give them a favorable deal. But also recognize the people in Gulags are often people who are sympathetic to the Tsar, who fucking hated the Japanese anyway. So recognize that they're not your biggest fans either. It's not like they love the Japanese and hate the current rules of the Soviet Union. They're not big fans of either of you. Also, they're not the ones in control. Also, I'm pretty sure there are people supervising the Gulags. Like, these people aren't just doing it for fun. I really don't think this makes any sense. There are absolutely people who are going to be there, who are going to give the orders to burn it down first. They're just going to do that. They're going to intercept you. And then they talk about the idea, they say, yes, like Barbarossa was a surprise. They're not going to be able to move people back. But I don't think that they engage with the substance of Dan's arguments at all. Russia, in addition to being large as a landmass, also has a large population. That means that they have more people who can fight in the war. More soldiers, better experience with the land, more ability to fight on land, because recognize they're not a majority naval power, means that they're probably going to win this one, guys. I think that that makes sense. But we also tell you that everything that Germany does is fucking irrational. Like, we really can't trust them. And they're like, oh, well, Germany has won some victories. Well, so has Britain, but we're not allying with them. Like, I don't think winning 1 or 2 victories, lucking into something, having your generals manage to turn a victory around out of your stupid decisions is necessarily a ringing endorsement for an ally. Also recognize that we told you you're not going to lose the alliance with Germany anyway, insofar as you're still doing things that benefit them. But the next thing we talk about underneath this is the idea of actually creating long-term solvency and actually helping yourself out, basically, by allying with the Soviet Union at this point. I think they never engage with this analysis. All they say is, well, they're really going to want China to become an independent nation that has, like, that has communism, but recognize that if you're the only one giving them a favorable deal, if you help them win this war, when they come out of the war, it's the only communist country in the world, they're actually going to need allies that exist, allies that are strong. Recognize that since you're re-entrenching on our side of the house all of your empire, since you're literally expanding into other areas, you're expanding into Iran, you're expanding into Singapore, etc., you're actually going to have an empire, you're going to be a good ally, or at least not someone they want to fucking cross, even if they don't like you. But the next thing we talked about was victory conditions for the Japanese. We talked about the idea of balancing it against others, Germany fucking up, etc. Oh, also, like, I just think that there are historical examples to the fact that even if Britain, like, wanted to come back and fight against you in Singapore, Sean can't say this, but just if you tried to slip in a new point, like, there's historical precedent for the idea that if people are losing a war, they actually do lose their colonies. See World War I, see Germany, etc. I think if you're losing a war, if you lose the war, which is eventually what you want them to do, they're not going to be able to regain these. Also, like, if you give favorable deals, which is what they're arguing you should do with people in the gulags, to the people in Singapore, India, etc., they're going to want to ally with you. This makes sense. Let's go on case. I think Dan addressed it, and Nick didn't really understand his responses. So Dan firstly told you about the idea that we're still expanding, we should have better expansion. The only thing is you don't have the manpower. Yes, we're saying use your naval power because guess what's an island? Singapore. Like, I think that we're saying expand into reasonable places first, get the resources you need, trade with Russia. We think that that's absolutely fine, that's always going to be better. But also recognize that their thing is, why should you pay for things you could get for free? What are the resources you're expending to maybe get the resources in Russia? There's absolutely no guarantee. I don't think they ever deal with that. Like, ego gets you killed. And they're like, ego can be good. Sean isn't dead yet. But I think that the deterrence is good. It'll also deter Germany from fucking with you in this because they recognize that you're not just their lapdog, that you're actually willing to undertake independent initiatives, that you are a strong ally but not one to be fucked with. That's always better. We talk about the idea of large population, etc. They just dropped this. Talk about the idea that you're seizing the oil, not the factories. Recognize that they're protecting the factories, they're protecting the middle of Russia, which is where Dan tells you it is. They don't argue with this. As far as this is true, you're never going to be able to get into that. Talk about the idea that you're in a worse position and Russia will go after you. We told you why it's not strategic for them to do that. Why countries, contrary to what Nick seems to think, don't make deals just based on friendship. Make them based on strategic decisions. Very counterintuitive.
opposition and call upon the leader in opposition.
Japan wants to be big, Japan wants to be powerful, Japan wants things to go their way. I'm going to tell you why on our side of the house, we better satisfy the needs for things to go our way, even if your operation would be a success. So what do you need for success? First, Sean says you need respect. No, you need material resources. Respect doesn't matter. Fuck all if you don't have the checks to actually count. So what did we actually tell you? You said you need to prioritize the accumulation of naval forces. This is going to require a tremendous amount of land forces, that could be better spent doing the things we talk about. But more importantly, like if you have 2 jars of jelly beans and you put more jelly beans in the land forces bar, that's jelly beans you can't put in the naval forces bar. It's a silly metaphor, I know, but hopefully it'll get through to side op government. So what do we tell you is necessarily why our naval forces need to prioritize? So number 1, it's the ultimate veto. Insofar as you're an island nation, if the Soviet Union decides to invade, which is completely unwarranted, we're going to tell you why. They cannot get to you because you have a navy. If Great Britain decides to invade, they cannot get to you because you have a navy. If the United States decides to invade, cannot get to you. See previously. Insofar as this is the case, that ought to be your number 1 priority. But more than that, a navy is a fantastic launching point because it gives you the ability to go around to all these places. Yeah, India is far away, but it's super fast to get there if you take the ocean route. This gives you the ability, you don't have to march across the Himalayas. That's what we're talking about. So all of a sudden, our plans actually sound less crazy than John's. Low bar, I know what we're talking about. But insofar as this is the case, once we accumulate the naval forces, and once we lock down these areas first, and make it so that our allies cannot actually touch us, we completely satisfied our defense, then we can go on the offense and do that. So militarily, we've got the right path. It's going to take a little longer, sure, but I'm patient. I can wait for a while. So what do they tell you? You need material resources. You need all these things. Right, we agree. So in the short run, how are we going to get more resources from Russia? Well, simply put, we're not going to give Russia an incentive to burn them down because we're actually going to buy them. So first, this trade deal worked in the past. Nick says, oh, it's hard to set up. It's already been set up. This thing already exists in the status quo. There's no reason to. It's like, also, the setup time is absolute bullshit. Like, you can have it tomorrow. I'm probably still waiting on the docks. More importantly, it's a deal that already exists, so Russia has no incentive to break from it. More importantly, what does the MO tell you? Hey, Russia, you got raw resources, but no war materials anymore because Germany kind of dicked out on the deal. Guess who's going to make you some weapons that you all of a sudden need very badly? Russia wants this deal so badly, it's not even funny. So in the short term, you're definitely getting it. There's a comparative advantage. I'll introduce you to my boy Ricardo. You'll love him. But in the long run, how are we better able to accomplish it? So first, I've showed you how we're able to better satisfy our short-term resource goals, which means you can then build up a navy, which means you satisfy your defensive goals, then build up an army, which is good for offense, and you can sail around conquering all these territories, which is conquer the crucial places. So why are we able to better satisfy our long-term resource goals too? So number 1, when you beat the British in Singapore, when you're able to incite large amounts of the Indian population, who I'm sorry, if you tie my brother to a cannon and open fire to punish him, I'm going to take whoever is getting the guy who did that out of power. So that's why, and this is true. They did recruit Indian forces. So you're able to better satisfy those long-run goals. You land troops in India, rally the population. You don't have to treat them like an absolute asshole. There's historical animosity in China, not in India. Insofar as this is the case, you're able to satisfy those long-run resource goals by accomplishing this. You have to build it up very slowly. But like I said, I'm a patient man. But finally, we think to a certain degree you do need political cooperation. Simply put, you're not betraying Germany, members of this panel, because Germany betrayed you. More than that, nobody's going to care if you betray Germany because Germany is currently betraying the world. Russia's not going to invade, A, because you have all these fantastic deals. Number 2, like I said, it goes cold drop from LOC. You and Russia can now run the world instead of you and Germany. Russia's got the army, you've got the navy, damn, you've got the shit set against the United States and Great Britain. You become the new world hegemon, you become the new world order. It's a fantastic opportunity. So, I told you why this is just something you don't want. Now I'm going to tell you why this is never, ever, ever going to work. Why you're not going to get what you want. So, first, Germany is not going to win. This is something they don't actually prove that Emma deals incredibly well in the MO. So number 1, it's incredibly large. They're not going to be able to get at the industrial capacity because they don't have that much time till Christmas rolls around. The Urals are incredibly far away. The raw resources, like they said, in Siberia, so Germany can't threaten either of those things. They've got a lot of fucking Russians to fight through. More importantly, like I said, Hitler's luck is starting to run out. You can only afford to make so many of these mistakes before they start accumulating and turning into an absolute disaster. All of these points are never contested. Their analysis relies completely on Germany successfully invading Russia. And even though Nat's quarters would beg to differ, they can successfully prove it throughout the round. But more than that, let's talk about the Russian defenses. Russian defenses. When you have a large number of anything, it doesn't matter what the distribution is. But more importantly, like I said, Russia have a strong defense to defend the east, because a port is so valuable to their history, they've got one in Kamchatka, and they're not going to leave it completely unabandoned. Insofar as this is the case, your resources to better satisfy what you want, and invading Russia is not going to go well for anyone, least of all you. For all these reasons, we're incredibly proud to oppose.
I think the leader of opposition can call upon the Prime Minister.
Everybody ready? Fantastic. We have two competing plans. How does one side win? By proving that their plan does not create an extreme amount of harm to Japan, allows for a long-term plan for solvency in the creation of empire, and that they don't end up allowing Germany to win the war, because both of us apparently think that's a bad idea. Two RFDs. First, why is our plan ending up going wrong? So, Dan has a few examples as to why maybe they would care about Kamchatka. Here's the problem. He never deals with any of the PMC analysis about why other parts of Russia are just way more important. Then, guess what? The seat of power in Moscow, which is the central production, is probably more important than a random bump-up port at the side of Russia. That it's going to be more likely Stalin is going to care about that and the centers of population, because, gee, it's almost like centers of population leads to production, which leads to bullets, which means to fighting a war. So Kamchatka, not as important, fighting a war, important. But then they say, well, Germany's not going to be able to win this war because Russia's big.
Sorry, Quimber. So this is going to be a weird one. But obviously, major population centers defending, obviously important. But saying that Stalin will necessarily value them more than the ports in Kamchatka is new because there was no response to Kamchatka.
Point of order will be taken under consideration individually. Oh, not individually, it's consensus. Will be taken under consideration by the panel.
Great. Great. So, the other response is, well, Germany is not going to win the war because Russia's big. They don't have to conquer all of Russia. That's what they ignore out of PMC. All they have to do is destroy the production. Once the production's gone, Russia falls. Because guess what? People with spears not going to do well against the Blitzkrieg. That means Germany ends up winning. Why is that bad? Because if Germany wins on their side of the house, even if, we get some marginal negatives on our side, if Germany wins, they've accepted that Germany is not only a bad ally, but they're also defending a plan that explicitly fucks Germany over, right? Because they're giving guns to the Russians, right? That would lead to a situation where Germany would want to take you out because you are clearly somebody that's going to go against their interests in the world order. So then Germany comes for you, and now they have all the resources of Siberia, which is now the manufacturing that they have now started to rely on, right? Their plan is to put manufacturing in Russia. But if Russia falls, now they just have, or rather, their plan is to put raw resources in Russia. Now they no longer have any raw resources to have that navy, and guess what? German empire of world domination will probably eventually get a navy that will fuck you over after they take away all of your colonies and your Iranian oil. But that's the reason our plan is going to work. Lots of other warrants to just convince you of it, right? The population is large in Russia. Yes, it's a comparative debate. But if Russia is losing on one front and they have 100 million people, they're not just going to say 90% here, 10% there. They're going to say, we need to win this. We're going to put the absolute minimum amount in this region. And they just drop the analysis that even if there's a minimum force there that's able to hold you up for a certain amount of time, Germany will eventually break through, meaning that they stop losing their sorts of supply lines, meaning they can't fight you back anymore, and it'll be easier to get these areas faster than Germany because Germany is far away because, hey, Russia's big. That means you get all of these areas even if there is some sort of resistance. So our plan is going to work, but let's deal with how their plan is catastrophically bad. The second thing is, they say naval powers are important, but what do they drop out of Nick's speech? They really like saying drop, but they completely ignore Nick's analysis that, hey, if you're a naval power, declaring war on the United Kingdom, the greatest naval power, is probably a bad idea. But then the only thing they have is well, you'll just go through the rest of China, go through all of Indochina, and then find your way through India, and then you'll get to Iran after conquering that. So, then you get the sort of co-op analysis that they're well, if it can work in gulags, the gulags are going to end up being a situation where India is going to be happy to be liberated by the Japanese Empire. Maybe they'll side with you. But this is based on the precedent of Japan being a good power, right? Dan tries to say this in LR, being this nationalistic sentiment is in China, not India. But India knows what Japan has done in China. They're not going to believe that Japan's just going to leave afterwards. They're going to think that they're going to occupy them, meaning it literally creates the same situation. Yes.
All of the analysis was given in LOC by Dan about the idea that these people are going to be happy to ally with you in India, etc. This was not addressed by Nick.
So Nick specifically said India is going to be hard to control by the Japanese Empire. Then we get a response of the MO saying we co-opt the analysis that people in gulags are going to be freed by this, and they're going to want to be occupied, or rather, they're going to be wanting to work with the Japanese Empire. That's where the Sycamore analysis
will be taken under consideration by the panel.
Yes. So that means that these gulag analysis isn't going to work. And now I remember they also said a few other things about gulags where they're like, well, the Soviets will send troops to blow it up. Like, clearly priorities, right? Even if you have to send like 100 soldiers over, that's 100 soldiers you're end up losing on that front. You lose more. They're clearly not going to care more about that because the primary enemy is Japan, so they're going to, or the primary enemy is Germany, so they're going to dedicate more of their soldiers there. And sending a whole bunch of soldiers, like half the country away, probably not a good idea as far as military priorities, considering it's not dealing with your primary enemy. But other things, right? Like, not only is this going to be a bad deal for Russia, it's very likely that they ditch the deal later on. Why? Because you have shown that at the moment where it is most important, when you are allied with Germany, like they're just like, well, alliances aren't just friends and unicorns, right? Alliances are loyalty, right? You have to look as though, even when the chips are down, even when we're both fighting, I don't know, a world war, that you will come to the aid of your ally. But now you have shown to not only Russia, to not only Germany, but to the entire world, that the moment it looks inconvenient for you to actually abide by the treaty that you have signed, you're going to flip on it. And you're not just going to flip on it by throwing it out, right? You're going to directly support the enemy of your previous ally. This means that it's very unlikely this treaty even gets passed in the first place, or it makes it significantly less likely you have better connections with countries later on down the line. That's always going to be pretty bad. But the reality of the situation is the final RFD is the idea of what happens post-war, right? They try and say the Soviet Union is going to care more about you because they have an economic relationship with you. But this loses to the analysis of communism. Why? Because the Soviet Union does want allies. They are correct. But they can't have an ally that is ideologically opposed to them through fascism. That Japan will never adopt a communist system. And considering the fact that communist powers are necessarily reliant on spreading that ideology, a point we give you that never gets any response, that if they try and pick Japan, they'll never be able to get China, meaning they have to throw out their communist allies, which is going to be ideologically destructive, not just to the Soviet Union, but to every citizen, and that will create revolt within the Soviet Union. It is why we're so proud.